Shalom Aleichem. First of all, I'm very honored, humbled to be the first one to be opening up this Farbrengen. So let me begin first of all by saying L'chaim, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'atani b'dvoroi. L'chaim, Chassidim, L'chaim, fellow Shluchim, fellow Anash, the Dayan, Bruchim Aboim, and welcome to this very special Farbrengen. Those of you who know me know that this is really not my place. And I generally am very comfortable speaking in my own environment and my own shlichus. I don't consider myself as a Farbrenger at all. I recall you just saw Rabbi Yaakov Yehuda Hechtal Shalom. He was the translator for the Rebbe, amongst the many other great things that he was as a man. He spoke in 770, some many years ago now. I think it's over 30 years since he was nifta. And there was a Achdus Farbrengen there. And he got up and he said, I'm not a Farbrenger. There are other people who are much greater and greater speakers and more Hasidish and so on than me, but I can speak. So today I will just like to speak, I'm not a Farbrengen. I'd like to share with you a story or two in my own mind and try and link it to the theme that we have here on this very special evening, special 24-hour special misles of the Hilul of the Rashbi, and specifically as it is entitled as a Achdus Farbrengen. So I'd like to share some stories, some thoughts, and hopefully bring out a little bit of achlata, possibly that we can, some ideas that we can think about and share. First of all, we're living in a Zoom era. We know that. We're living in a Zoom era. The whole world has changed. Through Zoom, we have the ability to be able to connect with people that we have never connected before, in a way that we have connected before. In our own shlichus, I'm probably engaging with people through our adult education program, which has taken such a leap, like a rocket, something like 200 plus people a week through the various engagements that I have through learning with individuals and shiurim and so on and so forth, but also gives us the ability to be able to engage with the world. And so we've seen many Farbrengens of late. There was Farbrengen just last week with a Kinnis Hashluchim Oilomi, and we traveled to the oil together. There was a kinnis last week for the Shloishim of Rabbi Grona Zerchona Levracha, and there, a chav of mine from yeshiva many years back, Chaim Tzvi Grona, cousin of a nephew of Rabbi Leibel Grona Zerchona Levracha, and he made a reference to a letter from the Frierdiker Rebbe, if I have it right, to say that the first Yechidus, I know it's spoken about in our Yom Yom as well, but this is what he said, that the first Yechidus of a person's life is a Nitzchi. There's an Or Nitzchi there. There's something about it which encapsulates our entire life. So I would like to share with you my first Yechidus. I was 12 and a half years old. Some of you may know this story. I was 12 and a half years old, which took place approximately 48 years ago, Kanai Nora. And I was taken by my father. That was our gift for our bar mitzvah. We were taken to see the Rebbe. And to be honest, this is our Farbrengen. Yeah, we can speak a hop. To be honest, I wasn't most engaged with my preparation for the bar mitzvah and the learning the Maimah and so on and so forth. I did it eventually for the 11th hour, but we had to work hard at it. And in my own mind, I was thinking I'd been prepped. My understanding of Rebbe Chassid relationship is, I hope I understand it a bit better today, but then as a 12 and a half year old, I certainly didn't. And I was told that, you're going to Yechidus and the Rebbe might ask you some questions. So I was thinking to myself, if this Rebbe is such a great man, he'll know that I don't really know that much. He'll know that I don't really know the Maimah. So, Anyway, the day came. It was Erev Shavuos, 48 years ago. Knara was coming up to the anniversary. And I came into the Yechidus, which obviously we remember very, very well. And I gave the Rebbe my zettel. I see there's some people here who remember this from the early years of Chabad Lubavitch in the early years. And there was a minyan downstairs and there was a minyan upstairs. The Anash minyan was upstairs, the older, technically the older Anash guys, and there was a minyan downstairs called Tzirei Lubavitch, the youth of Lubavitch. It was run by my father, Zechron Levrocha. The other very well-known characters were part and parcel of this minyan. At that time, at 12 and a half, they made us Gaboim. I, with one or two others, we were Gaboim of the minyan, even though we were not bar mitzvah yet. So what did we do? We used to make herring. We used to prepare the Kedushin. We couldn't call people up to say the Torah, but we could prepare the Sufrin. We cleaned with this, yes, even those days. So these were all in my zettel that I wrote to the Rebbe. And my yechidus was exactly 6 minutes. I have it recorded. My father wrote it down for me afterwards. And so I gave the zettel to the Rebbe. The Rebbe reads the zettel and then he turns to me. He asked me, first of all, do I want him to speak to me in English or Yiddish? And I said, like a good Englishman, English, please. At that time, I couldn't speak Yiddish. Only learned Yiddish. I was not brought up on Yiddish. I only learned Yiddish in yeshivas later. And the Rebbe said to me, he read the zettel, and he said to me that I should continue to write to him good news about the activities that I'm doing and involved with in the Tzirei Lubavitch minyan. That was the gist of my first yechidus. The Rebbe gave me brachas, he gave me a Tanya, which Baruch Hashem I still have and still use every day today, and that was more or less my yechidus. I came out of the room. My father stayed in the room for some period beyond that, and at the same time, Rabbi Herzl, as I gesund, he was the Rosh Hashiva, was then the headmaster of the school that I went to, which was in Kingsley Way. It was called the Senior School of Lubavitch. And he asked me, what did the Rebbe ask? Well, what happened? So when I told him what happened, he was ois keli because he couldn't understand it. He didn't ask me a question, didn't ask me about my maimed, didn't ask me anything. He just gave me these brachas. So I took this, and when I listened to Chaim Tzvi the other day, and I was thinking about tonight a little bit, I said, that this is a nitzchi. The Rebbe gave me already. What do we learn from that? The Rebbe already gave me at the age of 12 and a half a shlichus, but it was the essence of it. What was the essence of it? That I should write to him good news about the activities that I'm doing in Tzirei Lubavitch. From this I took out is the importance of communicating with the Rebbe, which we've been told many, many times, not only in a time of tzoros, and not only when we need things and we constantly write and we constantly need ba'ad hayom hazeh, but we have to share good things as well. When we talk about Achdus, we're talking about unity, and we're talking about caring and considering other person's needs, we had to, and we should consider the Rebbe's needs as well. And when that was, the Rebbe wanted to hear. The Rebbe wanted to hear good things. I recently went through my own personal letters, of which I have a few from the Rebbe, and the Rebbe wrote there 3 times pre-bar mitzvah to 3 bar mitzvah letters, Toshin Chav Ches, Toshin Chav Tes, and Toshin Lamed Aleph, that there is nothing that stands in the way of Ratzon. What's Ratzon? So we're learning at the moment, the local shluchim, we meet together, Baruch Hashem, we had done even before lockdown, we have meetings once every few weeks, so we learn something. But now during lockdown, Baruch Hashem, we've been learning it once a week. Once a week we get together and we're learning. At the moment we're learning some sichas bilti muga from the spirit period of Toshin Lamed Vav. And there, I was there actually. I was in New York at this time. I was learning Morristown, so I was back and forth. I was probably there at Farbrengen. And the Rebbe there was talking about the Rashbi, how he was Terasum Nosei. So what did the Rebbe say? Terasum Nosei was Zayin Avodah. That was his work, and so much so that he was able to. I'm saying in English. He was able to be poil that you read this Geshomen Kipshutai, that the Terasum Nosei, because the Rashbi's Torah was by him Nosei. What's Pshat Nosei? What does it mean? That was his whole being. But we know that the Rashbi was involved in other things as well. But in his door, he was able to take Terasum, which was him Nosei. He was able to even bring about Yeridas Geshomim Kipshutai. And then the Rebbe asked the question, so what about the other people? And then he talked about Choni HaMagol. The Choni HaMagol, in order to be able to do that, and it was a tzaddik, he was a great person. He had to, in order to be able to achieve that, what did he have to do? He had to use tefillah. So in other words, he had to use another keli, another conduit, in order to bring those brachas down. So Rebbe asked the question, and what about Bisman and nowadays? That was in the Choni Amoga was in the time Beis Hamikdash. But what about us in our generation? What about a generation like us? And the Rebbe refers to Ikvasa the Mashiach or Poshet to mention Ish Poshet. How are we able to be poil? If we're talking about Terosum Nasa the Rashbi. So the Rebbe uses very strong words, and he says if there is a Rotzain Takif, if a person first of all, he is a balabos of zich. A person is responsible for himself. And if he really feels that he can do it, he has a rotzen takif, a very strong rotzen, he has the ability to be able to do it. But that's dependent on the individual and the desire. And that's why when I look back and I say, on the first, I'm sure many people, I don't think this was a one-liner to me. It was said many times, which means to say, there's nothing that stands lifnei harotza. And the Rebbe talks about harotza in takif. If a person has a strong desire, a strong rotzen to do something, we have the ability to be able to do it, and nothing will get in the way of it. So here we're talking about, in the Let's Take, we've been talking about Farbrengens, Zoom Farbrengens, and Farbrengens about Machen Shalom, making peace, and they take on all sorts of directions from shluchim, older shluchim, great shluchim, people of Anash as well, who get together and they're going to make shalom. And then within a 24-hour period, we hear at the same time that there's certain conditions, and we can't just do it like this. It's got to be done in a certain way, and everybody takes on the responsibility of what the Meshaleach really wants and what the Meshaleach wants from us. But we see clear what the Meshaleach wants from us. The Rebbe wants from us that we should do with a rotzin takif whatever we can do. And therefore, we have to consider ourselves whether we are an obstacle to shalom or we are conduit for it. And this is up to, as the Rebbe says, every person's on a balabos of zich, and we have the ability to make a difference. So let me share with you another story, a personal story. In 2005, you remember it good. In 2005, there were the bombings in London. It was just Erev Rosh Chodesh. It was Rosh Chodesh Tammuz. It was a few days before Gimel Tammuz. Not that year, but 2005. And there was the bombings on the London trains, and I was on one of those trains. In fact, I was on the first train where it was going from Aldgate Station was where these bombings took place. And there's a whole, I don't have time to go to Tariq, so I have limited time now. There's a whole hachana to why I was on this train. Usually somebody says, and that's happened, and they weren't there. They missed the plane, they missed the train, the taxi came late, Here there was a number of reasons why I would have thought not to be on it. But the Hashgacha protest, one thing or another, ended up on this train. Even the train, as it came into the platform, it was ungepacked the train. I was saying, I'll wait for the next train. I was going to an appointment in London to see a journalist, actually, and I'll wait for the next train. But the train stopped mamish in front of me, and here again I had a choice. I go to the right or do I go to the left? And I chose to go to the right. It happens to be that the train on the left was where the bomb actually exploded, and I was in the next train. But as we were traveling, I'll go through it very quick, but there's something I want to take out from it. As we were traveling, this big explosion took place. It's many years since the whole struggles that we had in Ireland, where bombs were going off every 5 minutes. We were past that tkufa. We were past that period of time. So the emissaries had no reason to think that this was a bomb. So there was this big bang, and everything went dark. You didn't hear a sound. And you were in a tunnel, and I could see that down the side of the tunnel was fire. Fire was coming down the side of the tunnel, and it was coming towards us. And here you only have moments. What did I say to myself at that time? It was seconds, but it happened very, very fast. I started making cheshbonos with the Eibishter. And the first thing I said is, I've got so much still more to do. I'm in the middle of project XYZ. My time's not finished yet. Who's the balabos of whose time is when? It's not me, that's for sure. It's the Eibishter as well. But that was the first thing went through my mind. Second thing was, I don't know if they're ever going to find me down here. The third thing was, I said to myself like this, you know what? I'll work harder. then my mind is, playing devil's advocate here. Yeah, I'll work harder. I say, work harder. I'm already working 7 days a week, 18 hours a day with little sleep. What do you mean you're going to work harder? Well, what's you're going to work harder? How are you going to, you're going to work 19 hours. What are you going to do? So I decided then, I made a achlot at that point in 2005, which Baruch Hashem I've kept till now. And that is that instead of, I'm going to make sure that my time is better spent. So I'm going to call people with no ulterior motive. Once a week, I'm going to call people and make a kesher with them, not because I want their money and I'm trying to make a connection, just to see how they are. And every Friday since 2005, I have a long list. Unfortunately, many of them have passed on and so on, but specifically to almonas, to widowers, people living on their own, and make a phone call to them every single Friday, wherever I was, all over the world, I just call them Sacred Shabbos. And I found out later that some of these calls were people around the corner from me, were the only call that they got an entire week. And that taught me another lesson. And that is sometimes when we go from a corner shop to a supermarket, we tend to lose the individual relationship that we have with people. Now in this period of lockdown, Friday, I spend hours, whether it's 30, 40, sometimes 50 calls on a Friday. And and it used to be you called Shabbos just thinking of you. Now people are on their own, they want to talk to you. So every call is 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 3 minutes, 7 minutes. Think of that in time. It's hours. It's hours on a Friday connecting to people. And this is perhaps something that I'd like to leave with you as a consideration. This is a Farbrengen about Achdus, Sheva Sachin Gam Yachad. Sometimes we're looking for the most difficult things that we have to settle, the most difficult things that we're going to find our way through it and see, now I've done the job. Let's consider things which are easier for us to do. We'll deal with the bigger things later. Let's start with the easier things. And the easier things is when it comes to Mivtzoim, when it comes to working with the Roivam, Baruch Hashem, Anash, Luchim over the whole world, they're brilliant at it. We're marvelous. We're very good. You can pat yourself on the back and say, we do a good job. We call people, we're in touch with people, we have relationships with people, and we do a great job, and everybody thinks we're doing a great job. Where we fail, I speak on my own, for myself, I can't speak for anybody else, is inside. So it's this idea of, rather than inside out, we have to look outside in. How do we behave towards somebody that we're trying to encourage to do a mitzvah, to put on tefillin, to light candles, to do something? What do we do in order to encourage that person? What do? We're nice to them. We ask them how they are. We try and find out how their families are. We try and get to know them a little bit better. We do it with the nicest possible way we can do it. What happens when it comes to our own? When it comes to our own, we seem to be inside out. When the Rebbe spoke amongst the Mivtzoim, and he spoke about Mivtza Yisrael, he didn't say it outside. He said it today just now. Of course, he was telling the children. We just heard it in this Farbrengen. We just heard it in this Sikha that he was speaking in Baomer. But he said it inside 770. He said it to us. He said it to all of us. He wants us to take it on board. We're worried about where the whole world of Achdus Yisrael. We've got to start with ourselves. And maybe an easy way to start is pick up the phone, make a phone call to somebody you haven't spoken to in a while, somebody we've forgotten. Look around the shul and see, is everybody here this Shabbos? Is somebody missing? In our own Chabad houses, that's what we do. One person's missing, straight to him, what's the Shabbos? Sunday on the phone, how are you? So these are some things that we could do. So to recap, and my just humble opinion, I already told you I'm not a Farbrenger. There are others who are following me who are going to say things, I'm sure, which will be enlightening for all of us. But I'd just like to recap. The Indian in the first instance of what the Rebbe said to me at a 12 and a half-year-old boy, and by the way, I did it. I wrote for many years until I left and went to yeshiva. I was no longer involved in it. I did write to the Rebbe often, and I got acknowledgements. I have some letters with tachtach, the duch was received, tachtach. So I got those answers. Because for what was I going to share with the Rebbe at age 12 and a half? Maybe the Rebbe was telling me then, don't forget me. Don't forget to share. There's going to be plenty challenges. Baruch Hashem, you have a shlichus, many challenges. We have challenges every day. But share with me good news as well. And this I try to do in the best way I can. It's not for me to share with you what I do every week in my relationship with the Rebbe, but everybody does their own thing. And I always write. Wherever I'm writing, I write something good as well. Something positive happened, even though bakosha nafshish for something for myself, my family, or for somebody else. So the first thing is the Rebbe said, write to me good news. He was giving me a message. Share with me good news. When we share good news, we feel good, the recipient feels good, and we have the feeling that we want to do something better. I want to do another thing. This is a nitzchi. This is something which is the essence of who we are. The second point, which I just made from the story of the bombings in 2005, I'd just like to say as a hamtzah, I'm not telling you what to do. It's not for me to tell you what to do. Something that I do, I find that it works, and I fail I fail. I don't do it enough within. I do plenty it out. That we may be as a achlota, as something to think about, because the Rebbe always talk about achlota. You can have as many Farbrengens as you want, but the achlota of Farbrengen is not to make another Farbrengen, but mamoshias, things have to come out from it. That the Eibishter often that we should have the seichel anushi, we should have that common sense to be able to take out some practical things on this very special night. So Sheves Achim Gam Yachad, we're together. Kenai Nahara. We are, I don't know how many exactly we're on here, but 80 or more 80 Kenai of people come. I'm looking at some of the pictures. I don't know everybody on it, which is a shanda. We should know each other. We live in different communities. I don't live that far away from you. I'm in London. I'm 7.5 miles from Stanford, 14 or so miles from northwest London. Edgware, maybe another mile or so, one way, the other way. We don't live that far away. Yes, we're phenomena mentioned, but we have to make the time in order to be mechazik one another. And how do we do that? We do that by, it's easy today, a phone call, a text, a Zoom, whatever it is, that the efforts that we put out for the Ravam on the outside, we should have the seichel, the wherewithal to internalize it for ourselves, that we should take something out of it. And as the Rebbe says, Zarotzain takif, if a person makes a strong will, desire, a grace, we're responsible for ourselves. And if we truly want to achieve it, then the Eibishter gives us the koiches to be able to do it. Mitzvah Hashem, we should be zoich, and this Yom Segula is a very special day when the Talmidim Rabbi Akiva, we all know they stopped dying, that this pandemic, which has affected us all, Anash, Shluchim, in this country, outside of this country, I don't even count the numbers of Anash Shluchim, which I heard Rahman al-Islam being affected by this, family members of my own, which are very close to me, and in the bigger family of Chabad and beyond in the whole world, we've all suffered great losses, Rahman al-Islam. And in the same way that the Magefa of Rabbi Akiva's Talmidim stopped on the Lag BaOmer, we should be Zoicha, and this Misles, in this 24 hours, that we should hear that this Magefa Baruch Hashem has come to an end, and we should take the lessons that we learned over the last 8 weeks. We don't want to go back to where we were, but to be different people when we go back outside in the wide world, and to do the ultimate shlichus which Rebbe gave us, which was L'Hochanis Atzmai, V'chol Olam Kula L'Bias Mashiach Tzidkeinu Me'er Yameinu Amen L'Chaim.